Maersk, your e-commerce logistics shipping partner, the long road to Omaha. As Mark Pope just said, we have been preparing as a team for this the entire season. Now it's really time to go and prove your merit in the most important tournament that most of these athletes will play in their entirety of their lives. All right, so BYU and Duquesne, Jarom, first round matchup, the Cougars, depending on which line you look at, somewhere between an 8.5 and 9.5 point favorite against the Dukes, which is favorable. So we're going to discuss not just the line, but really inside the game, the things that matter most. Or do they matter? We'll present a number of different scenarios, stats, figures, about players and schemes and whatnot. And then you and I are going to discuss if it really matters. Beginning with this. BYU is 23-2, my friend, when they shoot 32% or better from the three-point line. How much does it matter in today's game in March Madness?
Oh, it matters in every game for BYU this year, Spence, of course. BYU's got to play well and shoot well from the three-point line. 32%, again, is not a huge number. Like, Mr. 32 was Jimmer Fredette, even my guy Dennis Pitta. But, yeah, if BYU can shoot in the mid-30s, like I see, like, Sean Farnham said, BYU will get a nice, comfortable win. But if they don't, that's where the concern is. BYU shot more threes than twos. They're looking to be the fourth high major team to do that in the last 20 or 30 years. It's unique, but BYU's got to do it. They got to shoot 32% or better. It matters. Typically,
BYU, if they don't make at least 10 threes and shoot 32%, they're in a really bad place. Not saying they can't win the game if they don't, Jarom. Like, maybe BYU shoots 31% or 30%. They could still win the game, but it feels like it would get really, really weird and be close and uncomfortable if the Cougars cannot hit that 32% mark or get into double figures in three-point shooting. So, yeah, I don't think it's something that fans should be afraid of. Because to your point, it's not like 32% is this incredible, out-of-this-world number. Like, if we were asking BYU to shoot like 38% or even 36% as a team, that's a big number. This team is more than capable, as they have shown time and again. The trend would suggest that they will be at this number. It absolutely matters. Make 10 threes, shoot 32%, and BYU probably not just should win, but should cover the line. I feel that strongly about this number. All right, number two, what do you have for us, Jarom?
I love it. Okay, Duquesne, 29th in defensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm. How much does that matter?
It matters. Duquesne can muddy things up. They can speed you up. And at times, teams like Duquesne have given BYU problems, especially in Big 12 play. If they can turn people over and create those points off turnovers and live ball turnovers and those momentum-shifting plays, like turnovers that immediately turn into points, are the ones that get the fans really going. And if you're not a BYU fan in this opening session, correct me if I'm wrong, Jarom, but naturally, people just want to see an upset. People just want to see the lower seed win. So if fans are allowed to start rooting for the Dukes and it's getting weird late, then there's some scoreboard pressure on BYU. So the Cougars need to do a really good job of ball security. 13 turnovers or fewer is where I've kind of put it, because Duquesne's really, this matters. They can make things very difficult for BYU. How do you see the Dukes defensively and how much this will factor in?
Yeah, they really slow you down. Like, think UCF, think a little Texas Tech, right? In terms of how they defend you. They may blow up the ball screens, but hey, BYU has so many cutters, such good spacing, some one-on-ones with Foose perhaps. They've got to knock down open shots when they come. Like, Texas Tech wasn't that the Red Raiders just disarmed BYU. BYU didn't get physical. They didn't get into what Dallin Hall calls the combat zone, get in the paint and up in a guy on the perimeter defensively. So BYU's got to rebound. They got to contest shots. They got to make threes, and they got to cut and get open to the bucket. Do the stuff that's gotten BYU to this point.
Yeah, they're averaging almost 16 points a game off turnovers are the Dukes. If they can hit that average or be above that, then that spells real problems for BYU. Okay, on to the next one. Duquesne's Jimmy Clark is top 10 in the country in steals per game. Almost 3 a game, 2.7. You pointed out in our phone call this morning, they call him the Pittsburgh Steeler, which is hilarious.
Great, right?
Yeah, it's a fantastic nickname because, of course, Duquesne is in Pittsburgh. And yes, it's a different type of steal, but the play on words is outstanding. How much does a player like Jimmy Clark matter in a game like today?
It does matter because he's part of a team that turns you over about 20% of the time, which is top 50 in the country. BYU's got to limit the turnovers like you talked about. It's part of what they do defensively. They're also a super slow team. They're methodical on offense. And so Dallin Hall told us yesterday, hey, we can't let that dictate kind of how we flow on offense. Jackson Robinson said, we live in transition. So BYU can't let Duquesne dictate the terms of the tempo on offense especially.
Yeah, again, if BYU gets into a situation where they're turning the ball, especially if they have one of those lulls where at times this season they've had 3 or 4 turnovers in a 2-minute span, and then all of a sudden, like, their 10-point lead is down to 2, like that spells trouble against a team like Duquesne. And yes, everything matters. Jimmy Clark matters, and frankly, Day Grant matters, which takes us to our next point.
He is #1 among all active players in 3-point games with 6 or more. So that's a lot. Does that matter?
I want to say that BYU, because they've had a full week to, like, or at least since finding out about the matchup, it's been 4 full days. Like, they're well aware of what this guy is capable of and that he's their best 3-point shooter.
Yep.
And the Cougars have done a nice job on some players. They had a really, really good stretch against Max Smith and some of these high-level scores in the Big 12 where they limited those guys. But the trend lately, Jarom, is, man, they've allowed some guys to just go nuts. Like, they've allowed back-to-back 30-point scores when you look at what happened against Oklahoma State and then UCF, and then Pop Isaacs got going again for Texas Tech in the first half. So I wish I wasn't as concerned, and I wish I didn't think it mattered as much, but this is a guy that could go for 25 or 30 points with how he can shoot the ball. Like, if he starts cooking and he's torching BYU, this could be another one of those scenarios where BYU's got a guy that's having a career-type day. Now, what I do like is it typically takes multiple guys to have great games against BYU to beat the Cougars because BYU is so balanced. So if it's just Day Grant, fine, but it can't be more than that. How do you see it?
Not super concerned. Obviously, there is concern, but think Jackson Robinson. Like, Jackson Robinson is a guy who's gone 4 for 9 in some of the biggest wins BYU's had this year from 3, notably at Kansas in one of them. So, yes, limit him, but you're right. BYU's had multiple guys go for 30-plus, and it didn't cost BYU the game. In fact, they have multiple 14-point wins against 30-point guys in Darius Johnson of UCF and Javon Small of Oklahoma State. So, not super concerned, but what it is like, if you take care of the ball, rebound, shoot 32% or better from 3, I'm not that concerned if somebody makes 6 threes from the other side or has 32 points because you're probably up by enough.
All right, let's go ahead with, now that BYU has been sitting on a loss for 1 week, you have to wonder, okay, how sharp is the chip on the shoulder, if that even makes sense. I mean, they've been bugged about this loss against Texas Tech they've been sitting on, but yeah, like the ad nauseum cliche chip on the shoulder is there for BYU, but is there any rust that's involved with this? I mean, how much does a week off and sitting on a loss matter in a game like today?
I think emotionally it matters. We've talked about various motivations throughout the season for BYU. I think BYU is very motivated and excited to be here. Duquesne had to win 5 games in 5 days to get to this point. And they may be a little tired from last week. They may be just happy to be here since it's been first tourney since 1977. Who knows? But I think BYU is motivated and excited in the proper way and rested and ready to go, man. I talked about Atiki and Marcus not dressed. That's been the case for the last couple games. They haven't been expecting them, per se, to be available. So it's a full go for BYU today. What do you think?
BYU has played in so many high-pressure, high-intensity, high-level games this season in the Big 12. We've talked so much about them being battle-tested, and they have shown resilience. I know you're probably tired of hearing about it from me, but BYU's won 5 straight games coming off of a loss, and all of those 5 wins were in the toughest conference in America. Let's believe what BYU has put out there and give them some credit for that. And so, yeah, it does matter that they've been sitting on a loss for a week. They've had extra time to stew on this, and they've won the last 5 straight after losses. I like BYU's bounce-back ability here against Duquesne today.
Okay, next one. BYU hasn't won an NCAA tournament game since 2012. Does that matter?
Emotionally, it matters a lot. For me, for you, for every coach on the staff, for all the players that have been hearing about it. Everybody associated with the BYU community, yes, this matters a lot. This would be the perfect way to cap a fantastic season for BYU. Just win at least one so that you don't have to be like, man, this was awesome, but gosh, they still haven't won a tournament game since 2012. BYU's a 6 seed. They were a 6 seed against UCLA in 2021. I know that the Bruins got hot, and they were probably underseeded in that regard. And this is a different team in Duquesne than what BYU faced in UCLA. But still, BYU's the favorite. They're a clear favorite. Let's go take care of business. They've been sitting on that loss for a week. This matters. End the streak today. BYU doesn't want to hear about this anymore. Start a new win streak in the NCAA tournament in Omaha.
I don't think it matters to several of these players because they weren't on those teams, and they're new to BYU. Guys like Ali Khalifa and Jackson Robinson and whatnot. Jackson wants to carve out his own legacy. He was on an Elite 8 team with Arkansas a couple of years ago, but he didn't play. He wants to play and be in this tournament and be a guy, right? Ali Khalifa wants to be a guy. He's so excited, by the way, to be in March Madness. I could see it on his face. He was stoked last week to just get a win in a conference tournament, let alone the NCAA tournament. As some BYU fans walk in behind me, which is fun. They continue to stream in. It's the time for this group to carve out their own legacy. It does not matter to them, in my opinion, that it was 12 years ago the BYU last won in this tournament.
Yeah, I guess my point there is they're probably tired of hearing about something they had nothing to do with. They're like, hey, we weren't playing on those teams. Don't put that on us.
I don't think that narrative has been pushed too much, so they're not overly bothered. I don't think the guys maybe even know.
Hey, then I'm glad to hear that, because you and I and all the fans have been, unfortunately, understanding this fact and diving into this. So end it today, and it's all good. Okay, speaking of tournament droughts, not just winning there, but just getting to the tournament. Duquesne making their first NCAA tournament trip since 1977. It's almost been a half century since the Dukes have been in the official bracket, and their head coach Keith Dambrot is retiring. He announced that conveniently once they got into the tournament, and now there's this win one for the Gipper mentality. How much does this matter for BYU and Duquesne?
The 77 thing doesn't matter at all. BYU's won a football national championship more recently than Duquesne's been in the NCAA tournament. What? The Dambrot thing is interesting, though. A reminder, he was at St. Vincent, St. Mary's High School, LeBron's freshman and sophomore year coach. Wild. LeBron tweeted about Dambrot, by the way, earlier in the week, which is pretty cool. BYU players were aware of that because they follow LeBron on Twitter, of course. But that is an emotional kind of stinger that could elevate Duquesne a little bit more. As you mentioned, win one for the Gipper type thing. We'll see if it actually works, though. I just think BYU is a very good team and a highly motivated Duquesne team. Great. First time since 77, you don't need to win if you're Duquesne.
No, they're good.
You need to win if you're BYU.
Yes. There are different streaks there for sure and different meanings for each team. Bonus question. Does BYU have any type of advantage because this is a morning game and the last two games they have played have been essentially in this window, Jarom?
Dallin Hall said they're starting to get used to it. And so the rhythm of that may be new for Duquesne. Granted, I don't know if Duquesne played in the morning in the A-10 tournament. Maybe they did, but they played 5 games. Chances are they played at least one early, but they might have been on the afternoon, evening side of the bracket. I don't know. I just think BYU's the better team, and they're going to win today.